When I think of autumn, pumpkin is one of the first associations that come to my mind. I guess I'm not alone when saying pumpkins are not simply a product of autumn, but maybe even a symbol of it. That's why today we have a dessert that suits the current season and is relatively easy to prepare with just a few ingredients. Kabak Tatlısı, a pumpkin dessert that traces its origins back to the Ottoman Empire. Stay tuned. Salam, Nail here. Pumpkins come from the New World, meaning North and South America, where they were cultivated over 10,000 years ago in the Mojos Plain, located in present-day Bolivia. Today, the pumpkin has found its place in nearly every cuisine worldwide, boasting a vast diversity with hundreds of pumpkin varieties. Pumpkins are highly versatile, whether you want to use them for decoration, set world records in giant pumpkin growing, or simply incorporate them into your cooking for soups, cakes, bread, purees, or sauces. It's almost an all-purpose ingredient. But enough of the introduction, let's get started. Here I have a beautiful giant pumpkin, to be precise, a variety from Turkey, known by the charming name helvacı kabağı and often referred to as kestane kabağı. Giant pumpkins fall under the category of winter squashes, and when stored in a cool, dry place, they can last for several months, which is quite convenient. I cut off a bit more than a kilogram from my pumpkin, so that after cleaning I end up with about 1 kilogram, which should suffice for approximately 2 to 3 people. I'll peel and de-seed it thoroughly, then proceed to slice it into presentable portions, because as they say, we also eat with our eyes. I cut the pumpkin into larger pieces, as smaller pieces tend to become mushy while cooking. Pay attention to smooth cutting edges, as the smoother the cut surfaces are now, the more aesthetically pleasing the pumpkin pieces will look in the end. Oh, and in rare cases, there is a possibility that pumpkins and other members of the squash family, such as zucchini and cucumbers, may contain higher levels of bitter toxins known as cucurbitacins, which can be harmful to health. So if your pumpkin tastes bitter, do not consume it and discard it. Let's get back to work. I'm now placing the sliced pumpkin pieces into a baking dish and sprinkle them with 300 grams of sugar in total. You can of course adjust the ratio to your taste. I add 2 cloves and half a cinnamon stick for flavor, but this is only optional and your decision to include or not. I cover the baking dish and let it sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 hours. I do this to draw out the juice from the pumpkins and then cook them in their own juices afterward. After 2 hours, our pumpkin pieces now look like this. As you can see, the sugar has mostly dissolved and the pumpkin pieces are submerged in syrup. This is because of the sugar's hygroscopic properties, which have pulled out the water from our pumpkin. This means that sugar can absorb water from its surroundings. Through the process of osmosis, water moves from the pumpkin cells to the sugar, as there is a higher sugar concentration outside the cells. Once the sugar comes into contact with the water from the pumpkins, it dissolves, and that's why our pumpkins are currently floating in syrup, at least according to my not professional understanding. I originally intended to prepare the pumpkin in the oven, but I must admit that my test showed me that the stovetop version tastes better in my experience. Therefore, I'm now transferring everything from the baking dish to a pot, including the syrup. I won't be adding the sugar at the bottom. And then I put the lid on. On medium heat, I let the pumpkins cook for about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size of the pieces. Try not to lift the lid often to prevent the liquid and heat from escaping too much. The pumpkin pieces should be nice and soft, melting in your mouth, but not be overcooked that they lose their shape in the pot. 35 minutes have passed, and as I mentioned earlier, this is how the pumpkins should look like when they are done. They should glisten like amber, gently caressed by the warming sun rays of an autumn evening. In terms of ingredients, this pumpkin dessert may be kept rather minimalistic, but in terms of flavor, it doesn't need to hide from any other dessert. As they say, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, although in this case, it's a recipe. Well, you know what I mean. If you'd like to see more of my content, please click here. I'd be very grateful for your subscription and turning on the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and peace be upon you.